have to get okay with not meeting everyone else's expectations. I'm not getting leadership development, or I'm not getting a pay rise, or I'm not happy anymore, I'm not enjoying my job. Once one of those things starts to break, that's probably when you see quiet quitting. I need honest and frank communication. I've got no time for any fluff.
You would
my
hate
way.
working with me. I'm telling you, I am a storyteller. Hello and welcome, Kelly, to People First, the Young Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and today we are going to be unpacking the reality of the modern workplace, a topic I am really keen to delve into with you. So we're going to be looking at toxic bosses, quiet quitting, and how to navigate office politics right now in 2025. So for our listeners, I'm joined by Kelly Smallcombe, HR Consultant and Talent Leader. Kelly, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
So can you tell me about your first job? It's something that we ask all our guests.
Yeah. My first job, I was a PA for, ironically, my hairdresser, of all things.
Okay.
But she just needed some extra assistance with general life admin.
Yeah.
And this was when eBay was brand new.
Okay.
So I started up her eBay account because I'm like a millennial, so it was right on the cusp.
Yeah.
So that was my first ever job. And it was not on a public transport route, so my mum used to have to drop me and bring me back every Saturday.
And that was just a Saturday job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whilst I think I was still at school. I was probably still 16.
I know. Gosh, I've been working since I was probably 14, which is really, really bad.
Actually, I think I probably was younger, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that, but I think those jobs, so I've spoken about it a few times with other guests. I am a firm believer that everyone needs to either work in a salon, needs to work in a call centre, or needs to work in some form of hospitality before they enter the world of work. Because
I've done all of those.
Yes, and I have too. So it's those jobs that really set you up, I think, in terms of handling people and handling, which is obviously something we're going to get on to, but I think it definitely faces you for the world of work. So moving on nicely from that, something I really want to talk about today is this idea of quiet quitting, right? And I don't mean to jump straight into it, but it's just something that I really want your opinion on. I'm a TikTok head. I see this all the time. I love my job now, but I definitely have been a quiet quitter in the past. I've been a loud quitter. I've been I've been a whispering quitter, and I've been somewhere in the middle. But I would love to know from your perspective what quiet quitting means, maybe the lead up to that, and what would make people want to do something like that. Yeah,
so I think quiet quitting doesn't have a firm definition. Everyone's got their own definition of what quiet quitting is. Generally, you know, if you look at general consensus, people talk about pulling back so that they can either get another job or just not do as much.
Because we know from working in recruitment that the best time to look for a new job is when you're already in one.
Yep. So you can pull back and go, okay, fine, I'm not going to give. Most people, or a lot of people, give 120%, or they're really working at their max, especially when you start a new job, because you want to make the best impressions. And so
and we're all young and we're hungry and those sorts of things, But
that, I think, quiet quitting. So I've been a quiet quitter. So when I transitioned, when I had my quarter life crisis, I was definitely a quiet quitter then. So I wouldn't say it's anything that's new, but it's prolificated kind of with COVID, and also I think with the launch of social media is that people see a wider world now, rather than you being stuck in your world and thinking, oh, it's horrific, I don't know how to get out, what do I do? Or just knowing what other careers are available. I work in industries, and I think, wow, if I knew that was a career before I started my career, I would have done that instead.
Yeah.
And so that access to information gives people a totally different perspective on what they want to do. Actually, maybe they want to do something differently, or that it's not the norm to not be treated well
of course.
Work. Because, a lot of people don't work for good bosses. Good bosses are hard to find.
Yeah.
And some people just think that's the norm. Some people just think, well, everyone, if you're surrounded by people that hate your job, you just think, well, everyone hates their job. That's just the normal thing to do. And we know from social media now that's not the case.
That's not the case. And it's social media and TikTok are brilliant things. TikTok is a brilliant platform for employability. It really, really is. From writing CVs to just knowing HR policies to knowing those sorts of things. But it also makes you think that because someone else is doing something or behaving a certain way, that you should be doing it too, you know?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, there's the recent conversation that we've had around everyone can be an entrepreneur and everyone can do that. And I think there's the kind of overworking culture of everyone thinking, oh, I need to be an entrepreneur. And not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. You know, some people are totally happy going into a job and never ever progressing. And just
I get
being
that
like,
completely.
I just want to be an administrator. And that's all. I had an administrator about 5 years ago that worked with me, and she was an amazing administrator, and she wanted to do nothing more. And it's totally okay to never want to progress the career ladder, but because there are so many other pressures of, well, I need to buy a house, and a lot of it is driven by societal pressures rather than actually, what do you want to do? You know, obviously you need a base amount to live, you need somewhere to live, you need to be able to afford all of those things, but not everyone needs to progress and climb the corporate ladder. And I think that feeds into the quiet quitting argument, because people think, actually, I've been working really hard, I've been putting in 150%, I've been working ridiculous hours because I want to climb the corporate ladder, because I've got this peer pressure and everyone's telling me I should do it. And actually people have realised, oh, I don't need to. I've got to a point now where I can live with the money that I'm getting, and so I don't need to do anything more. And so it's a real full circle moment, but I think it's hard to be comfortable to say that to the people around you, because especially, you know, there's lots of videos on, especially on TikTok, with generational differences. And that is somewhere where you could probably look at a boomer, and a boomer's going to be like, what do you mean you don't want to be a senior manager and you don't want to be in a C-suite? What do you mean you just want to be an admin? And it's like, but that's okay. It's okay to do whatever you want to do.
We're not cavemen or women anymore. Like, we don't need to work ourselves into the ground 100%. I could talk to you about these sort of things for literally probably about 4 hours, and we're on a time limit, but the generational thing is something I want to touch on, and I even see that between myself and my younger friends, right? So I work in an office with my directors and, you know, heads of finance and things like that. I have no problem making a cup of tea with them, having a chat with them, those sorts of things. Do you want anything? Can I get anything from the shop? Those sorts of things, right? But I have friends that have no interest in ever even... They just want to go in there, do what they're supposed to do, make no extra steps. And I don't know whether that's a hindrance or a blessing. There has to be some sort of a happy grind. Do you agree?
But some people just... So I am like that. And I've never ever had an issue with talking to anyone at any level. And that has been a superpower for me without me realising it. It's not been intentional. I've not been out to kind of, you know, talk to people just because I want something. You treat people like humans, they'll respond to you as a human, and you get kind of the best out of them, and that's when you can have conversations. I mean, I actually told a CEO last year, said, wasn't it time to sack it in by now, because he was just finding it so hard. I said, you know, you're at a point in your life where you don't need to work anymore. You know, you're earning money for the sake of earning money. And back to the point of not everyone needs to climb thing, you know, like you've done this job now for a considerable period of time. What are you trying to prove? Like, you don't need the money. You're comfortable at home. You can't go any further. I mean, sure, you can go and work for a bigger and better company. But at what point do you say, like, enough is enough. I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve and I don't need it anymore. I can just be the person that you want to be and be totally okay with that. But everyone, you know, I think a lot of people just find it hard to have these conversations, be like, actually, I'm done now.
And that is 100% fine. And if you look at places like, I'm not going to name and shame anywhere, but the accountancy practices, for example, right? Going from a senior associate to going to a manager, somewhere like that, is 10 times the responsibility for 1% of the reward, right? So I have friends that have been in the likes of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young from they were 20, and they have no intention of ever moving up because they don't want the stress. They don't want to work those extra hours and things like that, you know? I'm really happy with my career trajectory at the moment, and I do want to progress. I'm of the mindset that I would like to set up my own company someday. I work for Manpower Group, like the biggest recruitment agency or one of in the world. So why would I not want to work with the best and learn from the best and soak up the best? I'm love mentorships, love all that sorts of stuff. So I do struggle to relate to people that don't have that mindset. But then speaking to you, I just don't think that not everyone is cut from the same cloth.
No,
do you know what I mean?
And I would have been, if you would have asked me that 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I would have said to you, I want to be, you know, Chief Human Resources Officer, and I want to do this, that, and the next thing. And I have got to the point in my life now, I'm very lucky that I'm consultant, I'm self-employed, I can work when I want to work. But I am really happy with saying, okay, I've finished that contract now. I'm not going to work for 6 months because I don't need to.
Yeah. I want to ask one last question about quiet quitting, just before we move on to some other things about the workplace. Is quiet quitting new? Is this a new phenomenon, or is this just a new term that we've just found out about TikTok, or have people been doing this for a long time?
People have been doing it forever. It's just, I think more people are doing it. So I think that's new because of social media, because people are realising, I don't need to work all these hours. I don't need to do this, that, and the next thing. I can go and earn more money. I can get a better job. I can get a better manager.
Yeah.
In kind of the world of work, a HR professional would call it the psychological contract.
Okay.
So it's not like a physical contract that you're signing, but you start a job and you kind of go, okay, well, I'm getting this, this, and this from my employer, and my employer is getting X, you know, giving me X, Y, and Z back. And you usually kind of the break of that psychological contract, so it can be, I'm not getting leadership development, or I'm not getting a pay rise, or I'm not happy anymore, I'm not enjoying my job. Once one of those things starts to break, that's probably when you see quiet quitting starting to happen, is that people go, I'm unhappy. And often that comes from managers, you know, not being effective and efficient in what they're doing.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, there are lots of bad managers out there, but there are also good managers out there that can't have difficult conversations.
Yeah.
So then if they are not willing to say, actually, we can't give you a pay rise because actually you're just not as good as you think you are, which is quite often the reality of the situation. There's quite often a disconnect between what a company's expecting from someone and what an employee's expecting.
Yeah.
Some managers are not just not good at having difficult conversations. And so they end up having quiet quitters on their team because those people aren't happy. Whereas if they just had the difficult conversation and that person knew where they stood, they can then make a decision on, okay, fine, I need to improve, or actually I don't care, I'm still going to leave, or whatever it is that makes them happy. Or actually they might say, okay, yeah, completely fair, didn't realise that you wanted this from me. A lot of it's about mismatched expectations of one person expecting one thing, one person expecting another. And obviously on social media, everyone will talk about, well, you know, the market rate for this job is whatever, so this is how much you should be earning. And the reality is most employers don't care about market rate because market rate isn't really a thing. So then it's like, okay, well, fine. It's still, you know, time for you to leave. So, you know, thanks for your time. See you later.
See you later.
Yeah.
That's it. I've got a stat here and I want to read it. According to Gallup, around 50% of American workers may qualify as quiet quitters. So what do you think this says about the modern workplace?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously the American culture and the English work culture is very
completely different.
And, you know, Americans will call it European culture. Because obviously, if you look at other European countries, they have very different work ethics.
Yeah.
The UK kind of...
Italy, our Italian team shut down for a month in the summer, you know, like they live the life I want.
Yeah,
you know?
So I've worked with an Italian company, a French company, you know, the cultures are very different. They're very union driven, and kind of that can bring its benefits and its disadvantages. But American culture, they're an individualistic culture, so they are kind of working very differently. They also earn a lot more than the UK. So they can have very different expectations of what to get from business. And they're also getting a lot less benefits. So I don't think anyone in the UK would cope with having like 10 days holiday.
I would perish.
Yeah, I'm like, hello, I'm going on holiday for a month. What do you mean I've only got 10 days holiday?
I know. And I don't think their mat and pat leave is as good as what ours are.
Terrible. Yeah, it is. So kind of culturally, that's very different, which is probably why you see more quiet quitters there, because they think, oh, actually, and because they are kind of more individualistic in nature, you know, the Brits and Europeans are a bit more collective, so they will think, oh, I'll do it for the team, I'm not going to do it for myself, whereas you will see differences with all cultures, and whether they're right or wrong is a different conversation, but you know, horses for courses, everyone has their own motives for what they want to do. I love
that saying!
But it's so true. It's like, there's nothing wrong with any of these things, like, but everyone, you know, everyone's experiencing it, it's just in different forms. And where there is social, you know, wider social media presence and people are on it more and they're talking about it more. And, you know, the UK minimum wage is very different to the American living wage. So all of those things contribute to people thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to quite quit because I need more, I want more, I want to do things differently, or because it's easier to start a business, I'm going to start a business and do that instead.
Yeah. And I feel like even since COVID, like the workplace itself is just like dramatically changed. Like not even just like in terms of like working from home or anything like that.
No, but
like,
culturally, because especially for millennials, we've been through so many like world crisis that we're like, oh, it's just another one.
Today, not to interrupt you, is the 27th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland,
wow.
which is the first major event I lived through and definitely won't be the last one.
Yeah, no,
and like we've seen the Great Recession or whatever, I don't know why they call it great. We've seen like pandemics, like do you know what I mean? There's so much swine flu. Like we have been through a lot in our generation, you know. So yeah, back to the point. What do you think some of the positive and negative changes have been since we experienced that life-changing time of COVID?
So I think a lot of companies shot themselves in the foot with COVID because. And I think that's where you see a lot more quiet quitting happening now, is because so many people kind of are, and then obviously generational, we're all a bit different, but you know, millennials were more about work culture, Gen Z even more so again, and I'm sure Gen Alpha will be more so again. So what we saw was a lot of us got made redundant, or, you know, the American term would be laid off, or you got furloughed, and you really saw that corporates were treating people like they were disposable, that they didn't matter, that they were another number on the spreadsheet. And often that is the case, that is how businesses view people, but people have never really seen that side of corporates until COVID came along, and it was like, well, we don't need you, we're going to furlough you, so you just cannot work for a period of time, and tough. And a lot of people, you know, regardless of the job you're doing, everyone thinks they're important at work. There are very few people that think, oh, I don't matter. You know, a lot of people would say, what, I'm irreplaceable. And it's like, we're all replaceable at some point or another. It's just like with, you know, furlough, redundancies, layoffs, whatever it was, however there were very few companies that treated people well. And you remember it and you think, actually, I'm not going to engage with that brand anymore because they treated people horrifically and I don't want to, you know, contribute to that. And whilst we all think individually, you know, not everyone can make an impact, but it's still a personal choice. And you could think, well, I'm not going to give them my money, I'm going to give it to somebody else. And when you really see people being treated differently, you know, companies treating people as indisposable assets, not that they're people that matter, of course people are going to change their mind on how they treat work. It'd be really hard to go back into that same situation and feel exactly the same. You know, a work relationship is a relationship. Once you've been, you know, if you've been with someone that's cheated on you, you might get back with them, but you're still going to know in the back of your head, oh, you cheated on me. It's like if you break a mirror, you know, you can put the mirror back together, but you can still see the cracks. The same principle applies to the kind of work relationship in that, people are still working, they're still engaging, you know, some people are still burning themselves out because they want to climb the corporate ladder or whatever it is they want to do. But fundamentally, in their core, in their belly, they still remember the time that they weren't treated very well.
Yeah, and that segues on to the next one that I want to talk about, because we talked about pretty toxic companies, but how does one handle maybe a toxic manager or a toxic head of department or just someone in the team that is really getting in their way, you know? I
mean, I worked for a really toxic, I hate that word because we don't use it in HR.
Right, okay. So what is the better term to say?
But it's just how that manager makes you feel. Like toxic's an easy word to use because kind of everyone understands like toxic relationships, whatever it is. Obviously in HR we don't use that in a professional setting, we use different things. But I worked for a toxic boss for 5 years, but I learnt so much from her. I wouldn't be the person and professional I am now, and I also don't think I'd be where I am now if I hadn't worked with her for 5 years. So you've got options, right? You can choose to continue working for that person and take everything from that person in terms of what you don't want to be when you become a manager, or just being a colleague, co-worker, someone that you work with, someone that you engage with. You can choose to leave. And a lot of people are not okay with that because they think, oh, you know, I don't want to leave. Why should I have to leave? But very little, you know, there are very little times where person's going to fundamentally change as a human.
Yeah, they don't. They don't. I have found, Kelly, like over the years, I much prefer working for women. Like as a
Okay,
gay
interesting.
man,
Yeah.
I really feel like I'm seen more by a woman.
Yeah.
I like this is probably awful to say. I probably respect them more.
Yeah.
Like the through hospitality, through call center, through professional work. I wouldn't be in my job now without like a MD of a recruitment agency just seeing something in me.
Yeah.
My manager now is a woman, and I love working for her. We may have different communication styles and
Yeah.
those sorts of things, but fundamentally, again, she is teaching me so much, and I know that she really cares about me. My head of department now, like shout out Chris Miller if he listens to this podcast, is honestly an angel sent from above, and he really has shown me that like not all men in the workplace are just not very nice. He really cares about us. He's emotive in the way he speaks. He says he's proud of us and those sorts of things. And I wish that I could work for him for the rest of my life, or clone him for every other job that we have. So we don't like the word toxic, but talking on bosses, there definitely is sort of either end of the scale I have found over
Which is
the years.
interesting. So I prefer working for and with men.
Really?
Yeah.
And why do you think
But
that?
it suits me as a person.
Okay.
So I think fundamentally, the number one mistake everybody makes when they're looking for a new job is they look for a new job, not a new manager. And you spend so much of your time with your manager, working with them, having conversations with them. I take jobs and I take contracts based on the people that I work for.
Yeah.
Because I know that fundamentally is going to make or break how I feel day to day. And I can deal with the most stressful situation as long as I've got someone that the fundamental things that I look for. And so I talk to a lot of people that I work with, actually, I think, and I say to them, but you don't hate your job. You just, your manager isn't giving you what you need, and you have never looked for that. You don't even think about what's important to you, what you need as an employee to make your life at work enjoyable. And if you don't think about those things, if you don't think about what's important to you or what you need from your manager, and it can be like basic things, like I need honest and frank communication. I've got no time for any fluff.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to,
You would
my
hate
way.
working with me. I'm telling you, I am a storyteller.
But
fluffy. Yeah, like.
But I just want to say, actually, no, we're not going to do that. It's rubbish.
Right. Okay.
And obviously, I've got the credentials.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying it's rubbish for the sake of saying it's rubbish.
Yeah.
I want my manager to respect me enough to go, yeah, actually, you're right, and just move on, rather than have to sit there and give like a 10-minute spiel on why we shouldn't do something. Like that just works for me better.
I took a job one time that I didn't love, and it was keeping me awake at night, and I was leaving work crying and those sorts of things. And to be honest with you, it was my first job in London, so I needed the money and the security, and like this was supposed to be my big dream and all this other like rubbish. And I remember meeting my friend, who's actually a lot younger than me, but very wise. Yeah. And we sat beside each other in the train, and I more or less had a nervous breakdown and was like, she just looked at me and she was like, you just don't like it. And sometimes it is literally just as simple as that. And I've honestly, I felt so seen and so heard in that situation because I just didn't like it, you know, and there's other jobs out there, and, the market is tough at the moment and things like that. And there is sort of challenges that obviously get in the way for people to get into employment. But this is the Young Careers podcast, when you are our age, that hunger and the drive, that will get you places, that you need to have that. You will get another job. There will be other things. For someone who's not like me and has like just had enough, right? But they've got kids to feed, or they've got a mortgage, or they're caring for a parent or something like that. They need that financial backing and that income, but they are quiet quitting or they don't like their job. What advice would you have for that person?
I think you focus on, you have to kind of move yourself away from the negative of, I don't enjoy it. You think about, okay, well, I'm going to pull back and, I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to not do my job and annoy my team. I'm going to do my job to the best of my abilities, but I'm not going to give it everything. And I'm going to focus my efforts on finding a new job or thinking about doing something different. A lot of people don't think enough about, okay, could do something different. And I know the market's really tough and I know it's really hard to find a job. I see that every day on social media that everyone is struggling to find a job and, people are getting ghosted from recruiters and whatever it may be.
Yeah, of course.
And the reality is the recruiters are overworked and so they haven't got the time to get back to you, and it's a kind of this perpetual cycle. But you have to take the emotion out of the workplace generally. So you take the emotion out of applying for a job, because as hard as it is to get the rejection, it's not personal.
It's not,
How many times have I heard a hiring manager say, I don't know why I've picked that person over that person, I just have. And so you just have to think to yourself, okay, fine, I didn't get that job, on to the next. Don't get too emotionally involved in the, recruitment process. Don't pin your hopes on one job. Just keep on going until you get something that suits you, that's going to meet your needs. And actually, sometimes you could think, fine, I'm just going to take a step back and I'm going to do something that maybe doesn't pay as well, or, maybe it's hard when you've got parent responsibilities or caring responsibilities. You need the flexibility. That's where you see a lot of quiet quitting, because people think, well, I can't work full time. I can only work 3 days a week. And oh my God, how hard is it to find a part-time job? Impossible. But all of those things aside, you have to really focus on the things you can change, the things you can't change. And then what you need out of that. So, okay, well, I can't change the fact that I need to be part-time, but I can change the type of jobs that I apply for. I can change these other things that will make a difference to me. And people often don't think about kind of the wider picture work. They just think about, what are the job responsibilities, how much am I going to get paid, and the other basic needs for life. But actually, you could get those things from a different job. If you've been an administrator in one company, you could be an administrator somewhere else. It doesn't matter. Likewise, you might want to take a step down. You can do these things. You just need to think a bit differently. And that's where social media can help, because you get kind of the visibility then of, oh, actually, I didn't think about that, or I didn't think about this. One of my HR creator friends messaged me yesterday trying to help my family friend. They've, this is their CV. What else could they do? I'm a kind of roadblock because she's too, emotionally involved in helping that person. And I was like, well, that's really easy. She could do this, 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 and this. She's like, oh yeah, great ideas. And sometimes just ask somebody else. Don't be afraid to ask somebody their opinion. And actually, you probably want to ask the harshest person in your friend group. Because they're going to be the brutally honest person.
100%. I think that's a really nice point to leave it on. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing with work is to remember that societal pressures don't matter to you. As hard as it is, you have to get okay with not meeting everyone else's expectations. If you focus on what makes you happy, in work, outside of work, you don't need to follow everyone's trajectory. We've seen a real movement with people like myself saying, I don't want kids. And I'm okay with that. And yeah, people still ask me the question all the time, but you just get used to having that conversation. And so you can create your own movement and say, I'm okay with not climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it is that's going to make you happy. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one that's, paying your bills. Nobody else is paying your bills. You're not, if you're going home from work crying every day because you hate your job, it's too much pressure. Nobody else sees that side of you. They only see what you put out.
100%. And guys, for our listeners, Instagram and TikTok are not the be all and end all. We cannot compare ourselves to other people. We're on our own journey. Everyone's on our own journey. Some things are false. Some people just plain lie. So I think, what's that age-old saying? Look after number one. I think.
But social media is a highlight reel. You only ever, there are very few people crying on there every day because they hate their job. And the reality is a lot of people are going home crying every day because they hate their job.
I know. Kelly, I could speak to you for hours. I literally could speak to you for hours. I just really want to say thank you for this chat. I thought I've taken a lot out of it, to be honest with you too. I would love you to tell the listeners where they can follow you.
Yes, I am on TikTok. TikTok's my main platform, so TikTok, my HR Bestie UK. I do have an Instagram.
Which I love that handle, by the way. I love that handle.
It's just like, what can I do that just lets people know? Instagram is just really my day-to-day. I just don't really post on that. I have started a YouTube channel recently, But YouTube's a very different platform, so I haven't done any long form content, but I plan to.
Good for you. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. And for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in again to the PeopleFirst Podcast. As always, if you're in the market for a new job, why not check out Brook Street Online? We actually are one of the key providers for the civil service who have just been voted the #1 top employer for graduates in the UK at the moment. So a great time to come and work with Brook Street. And I know my PSR team are going to be really grateful for me saying that. As always, if you enjoyed today's session or my chat with Kelly, I would love if you could share it with a friend or a colleague or just someone special. And why not follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I will see you later.